The desert wind howled like a forgotten ghost, whipping sand across the cracked asphalt of Route 17, where the sun dipped low and painted the horizon in blood-red streaks. In the shadow of a rusted diner, its neon sign flickering like a dying heartbeat, a little girl no older than 7 huddled against the wall. Her dress was torn at the hem, dirt smeared across her cheeks, and her wide eyes darted toward the empty parking lot, as if expecting monsters to emerge from the dusk. She clutched a faded stuffed bear, its button eyes staring blankly, while muffled sobs escaped her lips. The air smelled of stale coffee and exhaust, but beneath it lingered the sharp tang of fear, raw, unfiltered, the kind that twisted your gut. A group of rough-looking men lingered nearby, their laughter coarse and mocking, circling like vultures as the girl shrank smaller, whispering pleas to no one. Tires screeched in the distance, a low rumble building like thunder rolling in from the mountains. Ethan Hawk Harlan, a weathered biker in his mid-40s, crested the rise on his blacked-out Harley, the engine's growl cutting through the evening haze. His leather vest was scarred from years on the road, patches faded but proud. Iron Promise MC, a brotherhood forged in the fires of old wars and older oaths. Hawk's face, lined with the ghosts of battles lost and promises kept, tightened as he spotted the scene. He'd been riding solo that day, chasing the solitude that numbed the ache in his chest, but something primal pulled him to a stop. The men turned, postures shifting to defiance, but Hawk didn't flinch. He killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the girl's whimpers, and swung off his bike with the deliberate grace of a man who'd stared down worse than this. "You lost, kid?" Hawk's voice was gravelly, low, carrying the weight of 1,000 miles. He knelt to her level, ignoring the men's jeers, his calloused hand gentle as he offered it. The girl hesitated, then took it, her small fingers trembling in his. Up close, he saw the bruises blooming faint on her arms, marks of neglect, not play, and his jaw clenched. The leader of the group stepped forward, a burly figure with a sneer, but Hawk's glare pinned him like a blade. "Walk away," Hawk said simply, no threat in his tone, just the unyielding calm of someone who'd buried too many regrets. The men grumbled, exchanging glances, but the conviction in Hawk's eyes, the quiet promise of consequence, sent them slinking back toward their truck. As their taillights faded into the twilight, Hawk scooped the girl up, her bear tucked under her arm, and carried her toward his bike. In that moment, as the first stars pierced the sky, he felt an inexplicable pull, like a thread from his past tightening around his heart. This wasn't just a rescue, it was the spark of something that would bind fates across years of silence. Hawk settled the girl on the passenger seat of his Harley, wrapping her in his spare jacket against the cooling night. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, firing up the engine with a throaty roar that vibrated through them both. She looked up at him, her dark curls framing a face that stirred an uneasy familiarity in his soul. Those wide eyes, the slight upturn of her nose. "Lily," she whispered, barely audible over the wind as they pulled onto the road. "Lily Grace." The name hit him like a punch, echoing through the chambers of his memory. He glanced down, and there it was, etched in weathered script on the side of his helmet, slung over the handlebars. For Lily Grace. A promise carved years ago, in a haze of grief and vows, now staring back at him like an accusation from the grave. The road stretched ahead, flanked by jagged canyons that swallowed the last light of day. Hawk's mind raced faster than the bike, fragments of the past crashing like waves. It had been nearly a decade since Sophia, his fierce love from the war-torn days, had vanished without a word. They'd met in the chaos of deployment, two souls clinging to each other amid the roar of engines and the sting of sandstorms. She was a medic, he a mechanic for the convoy, promises whispered in stolen moments, dreams of a life beyond the front lines. But then came the letter, the one that shattered him. I can't do this anymore. Don't look for me. He'd carved Lily's name on his helmet that night, a talisman for the child they'd dreamed of, the family he'd sworn to protect. Iron Promise had been his anchor since, a chosen kin of brothers who'd pulled him from the abyss. Their code etched in ink and blood. Loyalty above all, honor unbroken. As the miles blurred, Lily's small voice piped up again, her head resting against his back. "Mister, why's my name on your helmet? Did you know me before?" Hawk's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather creaking under his fingers. The question hung in the air, heavier than the desert dust settling on their path. He pulled over at a roadside overlook, the valley below a sea of shadows under the emerging moon. Cutting the engine, he turned to her, his throat tight with words he hadn't spoken in years. "Maybe I did, kid. Maybe more than you know." The stars wheeled overhead, witnesses to the unraveling of secrets long buried. In that quiet expanse, Hawk felt the weight of forgotten oaths stirring to life, the promise to Sophia, to the daughter he'd never held, now flesh and blood before him. They rode on toward the faint glow of a small town, its lights a beacon in the wilderness. Hawk's thoughts churned with questions. How had Lily ended up alone? Who were those men, and what shadows hid behind her frightened eyes? The Iron Promise clubhouse loomed in his mind, a sanctuary of roaring bikes and steadfast brothers where he'd seek answers. But deeper still burned the moral fire, the justice of reclaiming what was stolen by time and deceit. This child, with her innocent gaze, wasn't just a stray. She was the key to his redemption, a call to honor the vow that had survived the years. As the wind whispered through the canyons, carrying the scent of sage and steel, Hawk knew the road ahead would test every scar, every loyalty. For Lily Grace, he'd ride into the storm, gathering his family of the road to face whatever corruption had torn them apart. The town emerged like a mirage, dusty streets lined with weathered shops, a single motel sign buzzing faintly. Hawk eased the bike to a stop outside the local sheriff's outpost, a squat building with peeling paint. Lily clung to him, her bear pressed close as he dismounted. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed, casting harsh shadows on the deputy's desk. "Found her out on 17, Hawk explained, his voice steady but edged with urgency. The deputy, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, nodded, jotting notes. "Name's Lily. Says her mom's. Gone for now." The girl looked up, her question from the road still echoing unspoken between them. Hawk knelt again, the helmet in his hands, Lily's name glinting under the light. "We'll figure this out," he promised her, the words sealing a new oath. Outside, the night deepened, engines idling in the distance, as if the Brotherhood sensed his need. The promise that had faded now roared back to life, pulling Hawk toward a truth that would demand everything. His past, his heart, his unyielding sense of right. The fluorescent hum of the sheriff's outpost buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, casting stark lines across Hawk's face as he stood there, Lily's small hand still warm in his. The deputy leaned back in his creaky chair, scribbling on a notepad yellowed with age, the air thick with the scent of cheap coffee and ink. "We'll run her name through the system," the man said, his voice flat, eyes flicking between Hawk and the girl. "Sounds like a runaway situation. You got ID on you, biker?" Hawk nodded, pulling his wallet from the inner pocket of his vest, the leather worn smooth from countless rides. As he handed it over, Lily tugged at his sleeve, her voice a fragile thread in the tension. "Are you staying? I don't want to be alone again." Her eyes, so like Sophia's, deep pools of unspoken hurt, locked onto his, and Hawk felt the ground shift beneath him, like the earth itself was cracking open old wounds. He crouched down, the linoleum floor cold against his boots, and met her gaze. "I'm not going anywhere, Lily. That's a promise." The word hung between them, heavy with the ghosts it carried. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, stars scattered like shrapnel across the black canvas. Hawk's mind reeled, piecing together the fragments. Sophia's disappearance, the letter that had gutted him, the name he'd etched into his helmet as a desperate anchor. Lily Grace. It couldn't be coincidence. The deputy cleared his throat, sliding the ID back. "All right, Harlan, we'll contact next of kin. You can wait in the lobby if you want." But Hawk shook his head, a quiet resolve hardening his features. "No, I'll take her somewhere safe. Call me if you find anything." The deputy shrugged, accustomed to drifters and their codes, but something in Hawk's steady stare made him pause before waving them out. The door swung shut behind them with a metallic clang, the cool desert air rushing in like a sigh of relief. Hawk's Harley waited under the motel's flickering sign, its chrome catching the moonlight in sharp glints. He lifted Lily onto the seat again, her bear perched like a sentinel, and fired up the engine. The rumble vibrated through his bones, a familiar pulse that drowned out the chaos in his head. They rode slow through the town's empty streets, past boarded-up shops and the distant howl of a coyote, the wind carrying whispers of sage and regret. Hawk's thoughts twisted like the road ahead, Sophia, with her laugh like wind chimes and hands that could mend the broken. They'd planned a life, sworn oaths under foreign skies, but war had a way of stealing futures. Had she hidden Lily from him, protected her from the shadows of his world, the iron promise life of endless roads and hard choices? The betrayal stung, but beneath it burned a fiercer fire, the need to make it right, to honor the promise he'd carved into steel. They pulled into the gravel lot of a roadside inn, its facade weathered but sturdy, neon vacancy glowing like a hesitant welcome. Hawk carried Lily inside, her head heavy on his shoulder, the scent of her, faint soap and fear, stirring memories he'd long suppressed. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, took one look and softened. "Room for two. Poor thing looks tuckered." Hawk paid in cash, no questions asked, and they climbed the stairs to a simple space, twin beds with faded quilts, a window overlooking the dark expanse. He tucked Lily in, her curls splayed on the pillow, and sat on the edge, the helmet in his lap like a relic. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Tell me about the name," she murmured, fingers tracing the etched letters. Hawk's throat tightened, the words fighting to surface. "It was for someone special, a dream I had, of protecting a little girl just like you." Her smile was tentative, a spark in the dim light, and as she drifted off, Hawk stepped onto the balcony, pulling out his phone. The call connected on the first ring, the voice on the other end, gravelly with sleep but alert. "Hawk? What's the play?" It was Marcus, his second-in-command in Iron Promise, a brother from the old unit, broad-shouldered and unbreakable, the kind of man who'd ride through hell for family. Hawk leaned against the railing, the night air crisp, stars wheeling overhead. "Got a situation, brother. Found a kid on the road, Lily Grace. Name's on my helmet, I think. She's mine, Sophia's." Silence stretched, then Marcus's low whistle cut through. "Damn. You need us." Hawk glanced back at the room, Lily's form a small shadow. "Yeah, rally the crew. Quiet. We're dealing with something bigger than lost time. Those men back there weren't random. And if Sophia hid her, there's a reason. Corruption, maybe. We ride at dawn." Marcus's response was steady, laced with the oath that bound them. "Iron promise. Loyalty rides deep. We'll be there." Dawn crept in slow, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, the desert awakening with the chirp of hidden birds and the first stir of wind. Hawk watched Lily sleep, the weight of the night settling like dust on his soul. He'd lost years, but in her face he saw redemption's fragile light, a chance to rebuild what war and silence had torn. The phone buzzed again. Brothers en route, engines already humming in the distance. But as the sun crested, a shadow fell across the lot below, a black sedan idling, figures inside watching. Hawk's hand instinctively went to the knife at his belt, the moral compass spinning. Who were they? Tied to those vultures from the diner, or something darker, institutional hands reaching for the girl? He woke Lily gently, her eyes brightening at the sight of him. "We're going on an adventure," he said, voice low and sure, "with friends who keep promises." As they stepped out, the first roar of Harleys echoed from the horizon, a thunder of loyalty rolling in. The road ahead twisted with secrets, but Hawk rode for truth now, for the family fate had hidden and honor demanded he claim. Justice wasn't in vengeance. It was in the quiet stand, the oath fulfilled against the tide of deceit. The convoy arrived like a storm front, 24 bikes gleaming under the rising sun, dust swirling in their wake. Marcus pulled up first, clapping Hawk on the shoulder, his eyes flicking to Lily with a nod of understanding. "She's got your fire, brother." The girl stared wide-eyed at the sea of leather and chrome, clutching her bear tighter, but a smile tugged at her lips, the first real one since the rescue. They formed a protective circle around the inn, engines idling like watchful guardians. Hawk knelt to Lily again. "These are my family, chosen, not born, and you're part of it now." Her nod was solemn, a pact sealed in the morning light. But as they mounted up, the sedan peeled away, tires spitting gravel, a warning or a hunt. Hawk's jaw set, the promise burning brighter. Whatever shadows Sophia had fled, they'd face them together, redeeming the lost years with unyielding honor. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert into a furnace of shimmering heat waves that danced off the chrome of the iron promise bikes. Hawk's convoy idled in a tight formation around the inn's lot, the low growl of engines, a steady undercurrent to the morning's fragile peace. Lily sat perched on Hawk's Harley, her small legs dangling, the stuffed bear now tucked into the saddlebag like a trusted companion. She watched the bikers with a mix of awe and wariness, their leather vests emblazoned with the club's emblem, a coiled serpent around an unbreakable chain, gleaming like badges of quiet defiance. Marcus dismounted, his boots crunching gravel as he approached, handing Hawk a thermos of black coffee, steam rising like a signal fire. "Crew's solid, 24 strong, all accounted for. What's the route?" Hawk took a sip, the bitter heat grounding him, his eyes scanning the horizon where the black sedan had vanished. "North to the old safe house near Canyon Ridge. We'll hole up there, dig into Lily's story. But keep eyes open. Those shadows from last night aren't done." Lily's hand found Hawk's, her fingers cool against his sun-warmed skin, and she tilted her head up. "Are they bad men, like the ones at the diner?" Her voice carried the innocence of a question untainted by cynicism, yet it sliced through Hawk like a reminder of the world's sharper edges. He knelt, the dust settling on his knees, and met her gaze. Those eyes, mirrors of Sophia's resolve, now flecked with his own unspoken fears. "Some folks lose their way, kid. But we've got promises to keep, and that makes us stronger." The words were a vow, echoing the oaths sworn in smoke-filled barracks years ago, when brotherhood meant surviving the night together. Marcus ruffled Lily's hair gently, his broad frame a wall of reassurance. "Auntie Grace'll fix you up with pancakes at the house. She's got stories that'd make the stars jealous." The girl giggled, a sound like sunlight breaking through clouds, and for a moment the weight on Hawk's chest eased. They rolled out in formation, a thunderous procession that parted the empty road like a river-carving stone. The wind whipped through the canyons, carrying the sharp scent of creosote bushes and sun-baked earth, the bikes leaning into curves with a precision born of trust. Hawk rode point, Lily secured in a makeshift harness of belts and jackets, her laughter bubbling up as the speed built. Behind him, the brothers fanned out. Veterans like Tommy, who'd lost a leg in the sands overseas but rode with unyielding spirit, and young Jax, fresh from the service, his eyes sharp for threats. Iron Promise wasn't just a club, it was a covenant, forged in the fires of shared scars, where loyalty outlasted blood. Hawk's mind drifted to Sophia as the miles unspooled, memories surfacing like ghosts in the rear view. Her hands steady on a wounded soldier's brow, her whisper in the dark, "We'll build something real, Ethan, a family that endures." The letter had come like a betrayal, unsigned and final, severing the thread. But now, with Lily's warmth against his back, doubt twisted into determination. Why hide her? What force had driven Sophia into silence? The safe house emerged from the haze, a weathered ranch-style bunker nestled against red rock cliffs, its tin roof glinting like a shield. Chain-link fencing ringed the property, reinforced with the club's watchful presence, and as the convoy pulled in, engines cutting to a hush, Grace stepped out onto the porch. A sturdy woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair tied back and arms strong from years of mending both machines and men, she wiped her hands on an apron and scooped Lily into a hug before Hawk could even dismount. "Look at you, little wanderer. Come for some real food?" The girl's tension melted, drawn into the warmth of the kitchen, where the air hummed with the sizzle of batter on a griddle and the rich aroma of maple. Hawk watched from the doorway, the scene stirring a hollow ache. The family he'd glimpsed in dreams, now tangible yet shadowed by questions. While Lily devoured pancakes, stacking them like tiny towers, Hawk gathered the core brothers in the den, a room lined with faded photos of rides past and a massive oak table scarred from strategy sessions. Maps of the regions spread out, marked with pins for known trouble spots. Shady operations that preyed on the vulnerable, whispers of institutional rot where badges turned blind eyes for the right price. Marcus tapped a spot near the diner. "Those vultures, low-level enforcers for the Harlan Group, construction fronts, but rumors say they're running something dirtier. Smuggling, maybe worse, if Sophia crossed them." Hawk's fist clenched on the table's edge, wood creaking under the pressure. She wouldn't run without reason, and Lily, those marks on her arms, not accidents. The room fell silent, the moral weight settling like dust after a storm. Iron Promise didn't seek fights, they upheld justice where the system faltered, honoring the code that had saved them all. Tommy leaned in, his prosthetic leg tapping rhythmically. "We ride clean. Find Sophia, get answers. No blood unless they force it." As the afternoon waned, shadows lengthening across the yard, Lily wandered out to the porch, bear in tow, drawn to Hawk like a moth to flame. She climbed onto his lap as he sat repairing a loose chain on his bike, the metallic tang of oil mixing with the faint sweetness of syrup on her breath. "Mommy said you were a hero once, but she looked sad when she talked about you." Hawk's hands stilled, the wrench heavy in his palm. The confession hit like a slow burn, peeling back layers of regret. "Your mom. She saved me more times than I can count. We had promises, Lily, big ones." Her finger traced the club's patch on his vest, the serpent's coils seeming to stir. "Will you save her too?" The question pierced, a child's faith demanding truth. Hawk pulled her close, the sun dipping low and casting their shadows long. "If she's out there, yeah. That's what family does, chosen or not." Dusk brought the first real tension. Jax burst through the gate on his scout bike, face grim under his helmet. "Sedan's back, trailing us from town, then peeled off when we split. Got plates, fake, but I snapped pics." The brothers mobilized quietly, bikes revving in the fading light as they formed a perimeter watch. Hawk stood at the fence, Lily asleep inside under Grace's care, the night air cooling with the promise of stars. His phone vibrated, an unknown number, a text flickering. "She's closer than you think. Stop digging." The words chilled, hinting at corruption's long reach, perhaps even within the town's own ranks. Hawk deleted it, resolve hardening like tempered steel. This wasn't just about reclaiming a daughter. It was redemption for oaths broken by circumstance, loyalty tested against deceit. As the first watch settled in, engines humming softly, Hawk felt the pull of the road ahead, a moral crossroads where honor would demand sacrifice. But the family he'd built would ride through the fire unbroken. The desert whispered secrets in the wind, urging him forward toward truths that could heal or shatter. The moon hung low over Canyon Ridge, a silver sickle slicing through the velvet black of the desert night, casting elongated shadows across the safe house's perimeter. Hawk paced the gravel path, his boots grinding small stones into dust, the cool air laced with the faint metallic bite of impending rain. Inside, Lily slept soundly under Grace's watchful eye, her breaths even and soft, a fragile rhythm that anchored him amid the storm brewing in his chest. The brothers had taken positions, Marcus on the roof with binoculars, Tommy manning the gate, Jax circling the outer trails on his quiet scout bike. The text message burned in Hawk's memory, its anonymous chill a warning wrapped in vagueness. "She's closer than you think. Stop digging." Closer. The word twisted like a knife, implying Sophia wasn't lost to the winds, but hidden nearby, perhaps ensnared in the very corruption that had driven her away. Hawk's hand rested on the fence post, wood rough under his palm, as he scanned the dark expanse where the cliffs met the sky. Loyalty demanded he press on, but the moral weight of endangering his newfound family gnawed at him. Chosen kin, bound by oaths stronger than blood. A low rumble stirred the silence, not from the brothers' bikes, but from the distance, where headlights pierced the gloom like wary eyes. Jax's voice crackled over the radio clipped to Hawk's vest. Urgent, but controlled. Inbound, 2 vehicles, sedan and a truck, same plates as before. Slow approach, no aggression yet. Hawk's pulse quickened, the adrenaline a familiar surge from old battlefields, sharpening his senses to the whisper of wind through sagebrush and the distant yip of coyotes. He signaled Marcus, who descended the ladder with the grace of a shadow, his rifle slung low. Not for show, but a reminder of the line they wouldn't cross unless forced. The convoy pulled up just beyond the gate, engines cutting to a hush that amplified the ticking of cooling metal. The sedan's door opened first, revealing a man in a crisp suit, out of place amid the dust and leather, tall, with a neatly trimmed beard, and eyes that gleamed with calculated calm. Behind him, from the truck, stepped 2 others, burly types in unmarked jackets, their postures screaming hired muscle. "Mr. Harlan," the suited man called, his voice smooth as polished chrome, carrying across the yard without strain. "We'd like a word about the girl." Hawk stepped forward, the gate creaking open under his hand, brothers fanning out subtly at his flanks. No drawn weapons, just the unyielding presence of iron promise, a wall of resolve forged in silence. Up close, the man extended a hand, gold cufflinks catching the moonlight. "Name's Ellis, representing interests in town. Lily's mother. She's involved in matters best left undisturbed." The words hung heavy, laced with implication, and Hawk's jaw tightened, the scent of expensive cologne clashing with the earthy night. Interests? Like leaving a kid alone on Route 17? Ellis's smile didn't reach his eyes, a flicker of impatience crossing his face. Sophia made choices, protected her daughter from complications. Your involvement complicates things further. Hawk's mind raced, piecing the puzzle. The Harlan Group, whispers of land grabs and backroom deals where local law turned a blind eye for payoffs. Had Sophia stumbled into that web, perhaps exposing something rotten enough to force her into hiding? The thought ignited a fire in his gut. Justice not through fists, but through the truth that oaths demanded. "She's my blood," Hawk said, voice low and steady, the words a declaration etched like the name on his helmet. And if you've got a hand in keeping her from me, that's a debt we'll settle clean." Ellis glanced at his men, then back, his tone shifting to negotiation. "We can arrange a meeting. Sophia's willing, but on neutral ground. Dawn, at the old mill off Highway 9. Come alone." The offer dangled like bait, and Hawk felt the ethical pull. Trust the system that had failed them all, or rely on the brotherhood that never had? Marcus's hand brushed his shoulder, a silent anchor, reminding him of the code: ride for honor, not haste. As the vehicles retreated, tail lights fading into the night like retreating specters, the safe house exhaled. Hawk gathered the core group inside the den, the oak table now a war room under the glow of a single lamp. Maps rustled as Tommy spread them wider, pinning the mill's location. A derelict structure by the river, isolated and shadowed. "Trap potential high," he grunted, his prosthetic tapping the wood. "But if she's there—" Grace entered then, Lily trailing sleepy-eyed behind her, rubbing her face with the bear's paw. The girl's presence shifted the air, softening the edges of strategy into something profoundly human. She climbed into Hawk's lap unbidden, her warmth a quiet rebuke to the cold calculations. "I heard voices. Are the bad men gone?" Hawk wrapped an arm around her, the faint scent of pancakes lingering on her pajamas. "For now, but tomorrow we might meet someone important." Her eyes, wide and trusting, searched his. "Mommy?" The question pierced, drawing the room into a hush. Hawk nodded slowly, the moral crossroads crystallizing. This wasn't vengeance. It was redemption, honoring the promise to Sophia by reclaiming the fragments of their shattered life. Marcus leaned in, voice gravelly with conviction. "We ride partial crew, scouts only. Keep it clean, eyes on the truth." The plan took shape. Hawk to the meet, brothers in the shadows, ready but restrained. As the clock ticked toward midnight, Lily dozed against him, her trust a fragile flame. Hawk stared at the map, the river's bend marked in red, and felt the weight of years, losses that had scarred him, secrets that had stolen time. Iron Promise wasn't about glory, it was the quiet stand against corruption, the loyalty that mended what the world broke. Dawn would bring answers, or forced choices that tested every oath. Sleep evaded Hawk, the night stretching taut as he sat on the porch, coffee steaming in his mug, the desert's hush broken only by the occasional shift of a brother on watch. Memories surfaced unbidden. Sophia's face in the med tent, lit by lantern glow, her fingers tracing his scars as she whispered of futures beyond the dust. "We'll name her Lily, for the flowers that push through rock, Grace, for what we'll give each other." The letter had come weeks later, a severance that left him hollow, carving her dreamed name into his helmet as a talisman against despair. Now, with Lily's soft snores echoing from inside, that talisman had come alive, demanding he face the deceit that had hidden her. Ellis's words echoed, choices, complications. What had Sophia uncovered? A network of graft, perhaps, preying on the vulnerable. The kind of institutional rot that Iron Promise had quietly dismantled before, one promise at a time. The first light of dawn bled across the cliffs, turning stone to fire as Hawk prepared to ride. He tucked a note into Lily's hand before Grace took her back inside. "We'll be home soon, promise." The word sealed it, a bridge over the chasm of years. Mounting his Harley, the engine's roar a defiant call, he led the sparse convoy out, Marcus and Jax trailing at a distance, ghosts on the road. The wind rushed cool against his face, carrying the crisp tang of river water as they neared the mill. Rusted silos loomed like sentinels, the structure's skeleton creaking in the breeze, water murmuring below. Hawk killed the engine, boots hitting dirt with a soft thud, his heart pounding a steady rhythm of resolve. Ellis waited alone on the platform, but Hawk's senses prickled. Shadows in the tree line, the faint glint of scopes. No ambush yet, but the air thrummed with tension. "Sophia," Hawk called, voice echoing off the metal. Ellis stepped forward, hands open. "She's here, but first, a deal. Walk away from the girl, from questions. Harlan Group's business stays buried." The demand landed like a gauntlet, corruption's mask slipping to reveal the greed beneath. Hawk's hand hovered near his belt, not for the knife, but for the phone to signal his brothers. Justice demanded truth, not trades. "No deal. She's family." From the shadows, a figure emerged, not Ellis's men, but a woman, weary and resolute, her dark curls framing a face etched with the same quiet strength Hawk remembered. Sophia. Their eyes met across the distance, a silent torrent of regret and recognition. "Ethan," she breathed, stepping closer, the moral dam breaking. In that moment, under the rising sun, promises long buried stirred to life, pulling them toward redemption's fragile path. If this tale of hidden oaths and unbreakable bonds is stirring your soul, smash that like button below. It helps these stories of quiet courage reach more hearts in need of hope. The sun crested the horizon like a molten coin, bathing the old mill in a golden haze that turned the rusted beams into veins of fire. The river below churned with a low, insistent murmur, its waters flecked with foam and carrying the faint mineral tang of wet stone up to the platform where Hawk stood, frozen in the grip of a moment stretched thin as wire. Sophia's approach was deliberate, her boots scraping the weathered planks, each step echoing the years that had carved lines into her face, lines of endurance, not defeat. Her dark curls, once wild and untamed, were pulled back tightly, and her eyes, those deep wells of quiet fire, held his without flinching. The air between them hummed with unspoken accusations, the scent of damp earth and rust mingling with the subtle floral note that Hawk remembered from stolen nights under distant stars. Ellis shifted uneasily at her side, his suit rumpled now in the morning light, but Sophia waved him silent, her gaze locked on the man who'd once been her anchor. "Ethan," she repeated, the name a bridge across the chasm, her voice steady, yet laced with the tremor of long-buried pain. Hawk's throat tightened, the helmet slung over his handlebars catching the light, Lily's name etched there like a scar that refused to fade. He stepped forward, the wood creaking under his weight, brothers' engines idling faintly in the tree line, a distant thunder of loyalty, ready but restrained. "Sophia. Why? The letter, the silence. Lily. She's ours." The words tumbled out, raw and unpolished, carrying the weight of oaths sworn in the chaos of war when promises were the only light in the dark. She stopped an arm's length away, close enough for him to see the faint shadows under her eyes, the resolve etched in her posture. "I had to. The Harlan Group, they weren't just building roads, they were burying secrets. People disappearing, deals with badges that should protect. I saw too much, Ethan, as a medic then after. I uncovered their web. They threatened everything. You, the club, a child we hadn't even named yet." Her confession hung in the air, heavy as the mist rising from the river, painting a picture of corruption that snaked through the town's underbelly. Land seized unjustly, lives upended for profit, the moral fabric frayed by greed. Hawk's mind reeled, fragments aligning, the men at the diner, the sedan's watchful shadow, the bruises on Lily's arms like echoes of a larger violence. Iron Promise had brushed against such shadows before, quietly dismantling them with truth over force, honoring the code that bound them. But this struck personal, a blade to the heart of his redemption. "You hid her from me? From us?" His voice cracked, not in anger but in the ache of lost time, the family stolen by fear. Sophia's hand reached out, hesitating before brushing his arm, the touch electric, stirring memories of hands clasped in the dead of night. "I thought you'd chase the road, the brotherhood. Safer, without you." "But Lily," She asked about you. The helmet name. She found it in my things once, made me tell stories. I never stopped loving what we had, Ethan. Just tried to protect it. From the shadows, Ellis cleared his throat, his calm facade cracking like dry earth. This changes nothing. The girl's safe with her mother. Walk away, Harlan, or the group makes sure your little club's rides end in ditches. The threat slithered out, oily and direct, but Hawk's glare pinned him, the quiet authority of a man who'd faced worse than suits with empty bluffs. Marcus's voice whispered over the radio, low and vigilant. Eyes on 3 more in the truck. Hold steady. The tension coiled, the river's rush amplifying the standoff, wind whispering through the mill's skeletal frame like ghosts urging restraint. Sophia turned to Ellis, her stance unyielding. No more. I've got proof, documents, witnesses, enough to bury your operation. Let us go, or it all unravels. Her words were a moral gauntlet. Justice not in violence, but in the exposure of rot, the power of truth to redeem what deceit had twisted. Hawk felt the shift, the ethical current pulling them toward alliance. He nodded to Sophia, a silent reaffirmation of the promise that had survived the years. The vow to build something enduring, a chosen family, against the world's cynicism. We ride together. Iron Promise doesn't back down from this. Ellis's face darkened, signals flashing to his men, but before boots could hit dirt, the roar of engines swelled from the tree line. Not ambushes, but the brothers. Tommy leading a tight wedge, Jax flanking, their presence a wall of leather and resolve, engines growling like a chorus of oaths. The suited man paled, retreating to his vehicle as Sophia climbed onto Hawk's bike, her arms wrapping around him with a familiarity that bridged the lost decade. To the safe house, Hawk said, firing up the Harley, the vibration thrumming through them like a shared heartbeat. The convoy formed instinctively, a protective phalanx rolling out from the mill, dust billowing in their wake as the sun climbed higher, turning the road into a ribbon of gold. The ride back wound through canyons, where red rock walls rose like silent witnesses, the wind carrying the sharp bite of pine from higher ground, mingling with the exhaust's acrid edge. Sophia's chin rested against Hawk's shoulder, her warmth a quiet anchor, words exchanged in snippets over the roar, fragments of Lily's childhood, the isolation of hiding, the constant watch for shadows. She drew pictures of you, bikes and helmets, heroes on the road, said her daddy would come when she needed him most. Hawk's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather warm under his palms, redemption unfolding not in grand gestures, but in this reunion, the mending of a family fractured by necessity. At the safe house, Grace waited on the porch, Lily bursting from the door at the sight of her mother, Bear flying as she ran into open arms. The girl's cry of joy pierced the air, a sound pure and unfiltered, drawing the brothers into a loose circle of quiet celebration, nods and claps, no words needed among those bound by loyalty. Inside the den, as the afternoon light slanted through dust-moted windows, Sophia spread her evidence on the oak table, faded printouts, encrypted drives, names tied to the Harlan Group's grip, sheriffs on payrolls, deals that preyed on the forgotten. The room filled with the murmur of strategy, maps updated with pins marking the web's heart in town. Marcus traced a line to the county offices. We deliver this clean, to the right ears. No raids, just truth. Hawk watched Lily and Sophia together, heads bent over a sketch pad, laughter soft as rain on tin. The sight healed something deep, a scar from the letter's sting, affirming the chosen family's strength. But as evening fell, Jax's scout returned with grim news. Ellis's crew mobilizing, whispers of retaliation rippling through back channels. The moral fire burned brighter. Justice demanded they stand, not strike, redeeming the past by safeguarding the future. Hawk stepped outside as stars pricked the twilight. the desert cooling to a crisp hush, sagebrush rustling in the breeze. Sophia joined him, their hands finding each other in the dimness, the touch a promise renewed. "We almost lost this," she whispered, the weight of years in her voice. He pulled her close, the club's distant chatter, a backdrop of unbreakable bonds. "Not anymore. For Lily, for us. Honor's our road." The night deepened, tensions simmering like embers, the confrontation with corruption looming. Iron Promise would ride at first light, not for war, but for the quiet victory of oaths fulfilled, secrets unveiled, and a family whole against the tide. The first light of dawn sliced through the canyon walls like a blade of tempered gold, casting long shadows across the safe-house yard, where the Iron Promise bikes stood in silent vigil, dew-kissed chrome, reflecting the awakening sky. Hawk lingered on the porch, the wooden planks cool beneath his boots, the air crisp with the scent of dew-soaked sage and the faint lingering smoke from last night's fire pit. Sophia's hand rested in his, a quiet tether forged anew, her presence a balm against the scars of separation. Lily's laughter drifted from inside, mingling with Grace's gentle hum as they prepared breakfast, the normalcy of it all a fragile shield against the storm gathering on the horizon. Marcus approached from the shadows, his broad frame cutting through the mist, a rolled map under his arm and a thermos of coffee in hand. "Crew's geared. We hit the county offices at 8 sharp. Clean drop, no drama. Jax has the route scouted." Hawk nodded, the plan etched in his mind like the club's emblem, truth as the weapon, loyalty as the armor, honoring the oaths that had carried them through darker roads. They mounted up as the sun crested fully, engines roaring to life in a symphony of restrained power, the vibration thrumming through Hawk's core like a renewed heartbeat. Sophia rode pillion behind him, her arms secure around his waist. Lily secured with Grace in the club's armored van, trailing the pack, a makeshift family convoy rolling out from Canyon Ridge toward the heart of the town's deceit. The road wound through scrubland, dotted with Joshua trees, their twisted limbs reaching like silent sentinels, the wind-whipping dust devils that danced in the rear view. Hawk's thoughts churned with the weight of revelation. Sophia's evidence, a cache of ledgers and recordings exposing the Harlan Group's grip, bribes to officials, displaced families, lives ground under the heel of profit. It wasn't just business. It was a moral erosion, the kind that festered when good people looked away. "We end this today," Sophia murmured against his back, her voice steady over the rush of air. "For Lily, for the promises we kept in the dark." The county offices loomed on the outskirts of town, a squat brick building with flags snapping in the breeze, its parking lot already stirring with early commuters. The brothers fanned out discreetly, Tommy and Jax parking at a distance, eyes sharp for tails, while Hawk, Sophia and Marcus approached the main doors, the evidence bundled in a nondescript satchel. Inside, the lobby hummed with fluorescent sterility, the air thick with printer ink and stale bureaucracy, clerks shuffling papers behind a scarred counter. Hawk's boots echoed on the tile as he approached the reception, his leather vest a stark contrast to the suits milling about. "We need to see the district attorney. Urgent matter. Public interest." The clerk, a harried woman with pinned-up hair, eyed them warily but buzzed them through after a glance at Sophia's determined stare. In the DA's office, a wood-panelled room overlooking the dusty square, they laid it out. Files spread across the desk, like cards in a high-stakes game. Sophia's voice clear and unyielding as she detailed the web, names, dates, the quiet violence of corruption that had forced her into hiding. The DA, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses, leaned forward, the weight of implication settling on his features like dust after a windstorm. "This is explosive. If it's legit, it could topple half the local board." No bluster, just the quiet gravity of a man sensing the tide of justice turning. Ellis and his enforcers arrived minutes later, bursting through the doors with feigned authority. the suited man's face a mask of controlled fury. "This is harassment, private matters." But the brothers' presence outside, bikes idling like a thunderhead on the edge of braking, halted any escalation, a wall of moral resolve that needed no words. Hawk stood firm, his hand brushing Sophia's, the etched helmet left in the van as a symbol of the personal stake. "Truth doesn't negotiate," he said simply, the words carrying the echo of old oaths, the promise to protect what mattered most. Ellis's bluff crumbled under the DA's scrutiny, agents already en route from the state level, the Harlan Group's shadows shrinking in the light of exposure. By midday, as the sun beat down mercilessly, turning the square into a furnace of reflected heat, the arrests began, sirens wailing faintly from the distance, figures in cuffs led away under the watchful eyes of the press that Sophia had tipped anonymously. No gunfire, no chaos, just the poetic unraveling of deceit, justice served through persistence, and the unbreaking bond of chosen family. Hawk watched from the steps, Lily now at his side, her small hand in his, the stuffed bear dangling from her other arm. "Did we win, Daddy?" she asked, the words slipping out natural as breath, stirring a swell in his chest that words couldn't touch. He knelt, the gravel biting into his knees, and pulled her close, Sophia joining them in a circle unbroken. "We did, kid. Promises kept." The brothers gathered loosely, claps on shoulders and nods exchanged. Iron promises code affirmed in the quiet victory, the redemption of lost years, the mending of a family torn by necessity. The convoy rode home under a sky streaked with the promise of evening, the desert unfolding in waves of amber and indigo, the wind carrying the faint cleansing scent of rain on the way. At the safe house, Grace had a feast waiting, steaks sizzling on the grill, laughter rising like smoke as stories flowed around the fire pit. Lily chased fireflies with Jax, her giggles a melody of healing, while Tommy shared tales of rides past, his prosthetic leg no barrier to the rhythm of brotherhood. Hawk and Sophia sat apart slightly, hands entwined, watching the scene with eyes softened by gratitude. "I hid because I feared losing you both," she confessed softly, the firelight dancing on her face. "But you found us anyway." He squeezed her hand, the scars on his knuckles a map of the road that had led here. Family chooses the hard path. Honor demands it. The night deepened, stars emerging like old friends, the club's engines silent now, but their spirit roaring eternal. In the quiet hours, as Lily slept between them in the big bed, the weight of redemption settled fully, a legacy not of grand heroics, but of silent stands against the dark oaths that outlasted storms. Iron promise had ridden for truth, loyalty weaving them tighter, justice a quiet flame that warmed the cold edges of the world. The desert whispered its approval in the wind, a testament to promises that survived, families chosen and reclaimed, honor as the true road home. Thank you for joining this journey of hidden promises and unbreakable bonds. If these tales of quiet courage touch your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more stories of redemption waiting on the horizon. Ride safe, and we'll see you in the next chapter.